Good morning. Today is a very special day for me. So it's the anniversary of it's the 29th anniversary actually of my brother's passing. So he passed when he was 22 in a motorbike accident. And when you look at the circumstances in retrospect, they look just very unlucky and trivial. And there is a reason why I'm sharing this story with you today. It's simply because we don't think much about our actions and the circumstances these actions might have, especially when these actions are deemed acceptable, socially acceptable, and legal. However, a word or an act made on autopilot can really have tremendous implication in our lives and in the lives of others. So these decisions that we make very often mindlessly can really generate outsized outcomes. So my name is Peggy van der Plassche. This is the Microdose Diet. I used to be a banker and a venture capitalist. Now I speak about personal development, professional development, and I use modalities such as microdosing psychedelics, tapping, guided meditation in order to generate transformation. So I'm going to give you a bit more details. As I mentioned, the circumstances of his passing were pretty, like unlucky, which actually is the definition of every accident. Being at the wrong time, at the wrong place. A minute before or a minute after, it would have been fine, He was riding his motorcycle on a very large avenue. It was a beautiful day. He was indeed driving too fast, like a 22-year-old boy on a motorcycle would. And he didn't know, but the lights of his avenue, his lights were stuck on green. So he was just, zipping through. But on the other side, the adjacent roads, the lights were stuck on red. So the cars were obviously stopped. And so the first person in the line of one of these streets was a young girl, and unfortunately, the automobilists that were at this red light, they didn't really think, they didn't use their brain. Otherwise, my brother would still be alive. But actually, this is not the decision they made. They thought they would be better off cutting on the avenue, despite the fact that obviously the lights were on green for the avenue and on red for them. And this young girl who was at the front of the line, who was, kind of shy, impressionable, didn't know what to do, was honked at by angry drivers behind her. And after hesitating a little bit, well, I guess she felt the pressure and decided that she would go. And then she hit my brother straight on, and he died on site after vain attempts at resuscitation. So obviously, for I would say obvious reason, this story is an important story for me. But above and beyond the fact that I lost my brother that day, I also learned a very valuable lesson, the fact that our actions and words have consequences. And I am not paraphrasing John Wick here. And, even when these consequences don't materialize in obvious way, or actually don't materialize at all, there could have been no motorcycle that day, or it could have been a car, and maybe it would have been just a small accident or incident. The deed would have been the same, a stupid decision made by someone lacking self-confidence based on the pressure of mindless, self-important drivers who wouldn't have to live with any consequences. So what does that story and what does our actions and words have consequences mean for you? The first is presence. When we are on autopilot, such as these drivers who honk when traffic don't move, we don't tend to make the best decisions. Actually, we don't make any decisions. We react. It's like Pavlov dog. I wait, it's slow, I honk. Hence, really, the more we act from a place of attention versus distraction, the more likely we are to make decisions without reactions. And the more likely the decisions we'll make actively will be accretive. You know, if these drivers had asked themselves questions such as, do I really need to honk? Do I really need to pressure that driver? Is it going to get me anywhere? Am I even pressed for time? Or do I just honk because is what I am supposed to do? Well, there would have been a very different outcome to that story. Unfortunately, they didn't ask themselves any question and they just honk like the mindless people they were. The second implication for you is this fallacy, this false, belief that it didn't happen if no bad consequences ensued. And to stay in the driving world, because it's an easy one for us to understand, it can be drinking and driving. It can be stunt driving, which today in Toronto is pretty much everyday driving. It can be distracted driving. One might not run over someone and kill him or her, but it was just luck that it didn't happen. The same way the police might not have stopped that behavior and imprisoned the person, but it didn't change the fact that the behavior took place. So, pondering before and after our actions on what the consequences were, but also what they could have been, is a great way to make more enlightened decisions. So we don't make the same autopilot reaction in the future. And this is not just applicable to life and death situations, we have the power to bring value to others and ourselves, but we also have the power to take value from others and ourselves in our everyday life. So driving is an extreme and easy to understand example, as the potential consequences can be so dramatic. Last and not least is recognizing that it could be you or a dear one on the other side of the action. So I live close to a school, and I'm always very puzzled by the parents' behavior. So you see them, driving their big SUV at great speed when the kids are in the car with them. But when the kids are on the sidewalk and we see a car that is going too fast, they scream. And for me, it's really the definition of insanity and such great role modeling as well for the kids. So, like treating others the way one would like to be treated or the way one would like his dear one to be treated is probably the main lesson I learned when I was a child myself. And for that, one needs to be present, but also one needs to have high self-generated self-worth. And so that's where I'm getting at as well is, why do you need self-generated self-worth? So let's take back the example of my brother's accident. If this young girl had had a higher sense of her own worth, a higher confidence in her choice and belief, she would have stuck to her guns. She would not have moved, despite the honking and probable swearing of the automobilists behind her. If the honkers themselves had had a high sense of self-worth, instead of feeling threatening and disrespected, oh my God, what do you mean? I cannot pass. I have to wait. They would have waited, or they would have just taken another road, in the example of the parents, instead of feeling the need to demonstrate their power and importance by driving impatiently an inexpensive car, maybe they would just walk their kid and, spend a nice time with them. So a lot of the decisions we made are, yes, based on the fact that we don't ask ourselves, they're just reactions, we lack presence, but also based on a very flawed and very low self-generated self-confidence. And at the end of the day, everything always comes back to self-generated self-worth. And this sense of value that really comes from the inside, from deep within, not from external signs of validation that our egos crave so much, but really from inside. This I have found to be the most important thing one can strive for in life, but it is also the most difficult thing to attain. And, think for a second, how can we be impervious to external circumstances when it comes to our own value? How can we feel self-confidence, self-love, self-worth, self-esteem when we're stripped from any external signs of success? Well, we live in a world where ego and the world scream at us that value equal job title, plus money, plus possessions, plus look, plus relationship. It is very, very difficult. So it really is an uphill battle, but it's an uphill battle that is really worth fighting for. Because, life is much more pleasant on the other side of the hill, where the decisions you make are based on, love, joy, peace, fun, versus keeping up with the Joneses and be socially acceptable. So the first step for you is really to even realize what is that concept of self-generated self-worth. What is even self-generated self-worth? And that for most people is something that we don't even understand because we're so attached to external signs of validation. So that's the first step. The second step is to define, okay, what this could look for you to have self-generated self-worth. I know for me, it's like, it's light, a lot of freedom, it's peace, it's just doing what I want and doing it with total confidence that it is the right thing to do, regardless of what the outside world is telling me, which I can write it down. It doesn't mean I can feel it every day in whatever I'm doing. And that's where you're going to step 3. And you're going to have to bring the big guns because it's not a journey for the faint of heart. So, you're going to have to use a combination of tools. And, I use microdosing psychedelics, I use tapping, I use guided meditation, I use, journaling, obviously. But with that, you're also going to have to combine a great dose of courage, of persistence, of compassion as well, in order to go in that direction. And it is not going to be easy, but at the end of the day, it really it is the price of your freedom. So I hope you feel encouraged to explore what self-generated self-worth could look like for you, and that you will hopefully encourage your dear ones to also look in that direction. It is a game changer. Thank you very much for listening, and talk to you next week. Bye-bye.